This be an awesome cast. Talking about the Ace Attorneys. This is the Awesome Cast. Hello, and welcome back to the Awesome Cast, your podcast for everything awesome. I'm your host, Basil, and none of the normal Awesome Cast people here, because this is an Ace Attorney supplemental for the DLC case Turnabout Reclaimed. Like I said, I'm Basil, and with me is, from our last Ace Attorney podcast, Alan.
Hey, I'm Alan Mendes from ReverseViews.com, as well as the Speakeasy Podcast.
And joining us this time is a brand new guy who was long-time listener, first-time caller. Mark, introduce yourself.
Hey there, I'm Mark. They call me Passion Tentacle on the Twitter, so I'm all creepy and stuff. I actually do my own podcast. It's called The Oriental Cartoon Show. It's kind of terrible. You shouldn't listen to it, but if you want to, that's where it is. That's all I do.
Awesome! So we're here because when we played the original, run of Ace Attorney 5, Dual Destinies, we found out there was a DLC case coming. And when we reviewed the game originally, the DLC case wasn't out yet. But now it's out, and we've all played it. And now we get to talk about it. So, before we get into it, though, Mark, you never got a chance to really chime in at all on the game in general, since you missed that podcast. So, without really going into any spoilers, what did you think of Dual Destinies?
I thought it was pretty good. You guys actually covered most of what I would have said if I was there anyways, so no real loss. I think it's probably the best game since Ace Attorney 3. Maybe better, maybe not better. I'm not sure. I gotta process it a little more. I just finished it this week in preparation for the show, so...
Awesome, well, thank you. And yeah, actually, I think this game is definitely in the running, and it might be my favorite game this year. Like, this Ace Attorney 5 might actually be my favorite video game to come out in 2013. I wasn't sure, but I'm now... And I'll get into it, because I think our next full-length Awesome Cast will be the reclaimed, Turnabout Reclaimed, the 2013 Awesome Awards. We're bringing them back.
Ooh.
And I think I'll probably go into more in depth in that episode on why I think Ace Attorney 5 is my game of the year. But we're here to talk about Turnabout Reclaimed, a ship-shaped shipwright, piratey water park episode.
There's also your prerequisite amount of fish-related puns.
Yeah, that's very true. It does get pretty fishy with its puntasticness, which makes sense. I mean,
They never
Phoenix Wright's always...
never clam up with those puns.
Boo.
So, anyways, I'm gonna harpoon you down right there, but
You're the captain.
making it happen. And has it always been? It feels like this Dual Destinies feels a little more, I don't want to say theme parky, but its locations seem to be more entertainment oriented, just inadvertently.
Yes.
Because in Dual Destinies, you had the yokai quote unquote theme park, you have the Space and Rocket Center, and now we have a water park.
That's true, but you also have a school, so that balances it out. Schools aren't fun.
And a blown up courtroom.
Oh, that's true. But I'm sorry, that's literally just came to me as we were initially talking about this. I'm like, they kind of really pushed heavy on the sort of the attractions sort of idea on this one. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but they kind of did. And even the school is, a lawyer and prosecuting school.
And they did have
So
the big
it's-
stage show.
Yeah, with the concert.
They did, which was also sort of a callback to Apollo Justice. But this one takes place in an aquarium and water park, where Phoenix Wright, he's finally back on the bench, and wouldn't you know, his first case is to save a whale.
It's a killer whale.
That is the most adorbs killer whale.
Even more than Shamu?
No, yeah, because, the Shamu doesn't have adorable punk rock, stars on them. Also, accompanied by adorable punk rock, trainer girl, who was the most puntastic punter of them all. As I think at least half the puns, easily 3/4 of the puns in this DLC episode are all from her.
She does try her best.
She, in fact, tries her best.
I don't get that one.
She accentuates all her R's.
Oh.
Because she's a pirate.
Oh.
Along with all her other, replacing words of, fish words just for, for the only reason to use more fish words in her daily speech.
All she didn't do was pull Ikabusume with, "Are you squidding kidding me?"
Yeah, she did that. Spoiler alert, she did that. But that was, I was mentioning this off the podcast, and I'm going to mention it on the podcast. One of the things I really enjoyed about Dual Destinies is I felt that all 5 cases were pretty important to the overall story. Normally, in a Ace Attorney game, the second and third cases can be kind of throwaway, where they'll give you these sort of more serialized plots that are pretty self-contained and don't matter too much overall with the story. Whereas in Dual Destinies, the closest thing we get is the second case, but even the second case, A, sets up the relationship between Apollo and Athena. Secondly, reintroduces Trucy. Third, introduces Fulbright. And so you get a lot of introductions to that very important for the storyline overall. Even though, the case was pretty self-contained, what it's also doing for the overarching storyline is very important. Whereas this DLC feels, of course, by its very nature, entirely throwaway, and man, did I love it for it.
Well, I did do one thing, although it wasn't super necessary. It did explain how people who had never met Pearl knew Pearl later on in the main game.
That's true. I just assumed that she would visit occasionally, but you're right. This would also... That makes a lot of sense. That's true.
Yeah, I did find it a little bit like, they all know Pearl. And like you, I just assumed that, it's not like, Ace Attorney 3 or 4 ended with Pearl being like, "And I shall never speak with you again, my hated enemy Phoenix Wright."
I didn't have that problem myself. I knew it was going to be... this case would be a little throwaway compared to the other ones at the end of the game. And I was just taking my time playing the game. So I actually played this case after the third case. So when Pearl showed up again later, I'd already met her. So,
well, I think that actually works out really well. I think actually that's a pretty perfect place to play this episode. And they also do... I do love all the characters in this one, like every other case. Like you've got the writer woman with her really weird aviator theme. Because you can. And I also really enjoyed Spike Spiegel guest starring as the vet. and proving that the only thing better than having a chocobo in your afro is a penguin in your afro. Man, as soon as that penguin showed up in the afro, I'm like, this might be my favorite side character.
You're all right.
This might be it.
You're all right.
Like, Spike, you did it. You improved your character design in the one way it needed to happen. You put a penguin in it. I'm very pro penguins. Very pro
Are you saying
penguins.
that
And
Cowboy
that-
Bebop staff is like, that's how we're going to nail it.
hey, all I'm saying is that if we end up seeing like a penguin pop out of that pompadour in Space Dandy, I'm not ruling it out. I'm not ruling it out. We might. I would be down with some penguin and pompadour action. And then if later the penguin also gets a little pompadour.
What if the
All
penguin
the better.
shoots out of the pompadour like a cannon?
Well, yeah, especially if then the other smaller penguin shoots out of the other penguin's pompadour.
Show the year.
That'd be perfect. That would win. I don't care if the rest of it is just absolute garbage. That one moment would make it anime of the year, possibly decade for me. So there you go, Space Dandy. There's just one for me. Penguin and pompadour action. You need it. But this case had penguin and afro action, which is also pretty great. And then, let's see, we also got, the the hired help.
Well, he was kind of like Chore Boy.
Yeah, Chore Boy, who kind of looked like a younger Michael Jackson, only with a rap thing.
I guess so.
That he was very Japanese looks at African American people, and this is what they see.
Well, I mean, there is somewhat of a hip hop culture in Japan, or at least people trying to approximate a hip hop culture.
There is. I don't know. That character really just didn't feel like to me is that Japan sometimes doesn't quite understand that African American people are people. It really feels in how they are shown in popular culture. They're shown much more as caricatures. Which I guess makes sense. I mean, Americans in general also their own caricatures. Like, really, I should be muscle-bound and blonde and blue with blue eyes.
I wish I was that.
And then have an even bigger nose than I already do. Possibly also a gigantic chin. That's what I should look like if I were to immediately go to Japan. If I was to be their American stereotype, that's what I would automatically turn into. Or be, a blonde with gigantic boobs. That's the other one. Either you have a gigantic chin or gigantic boobs. You get one or the other. You just get to pick.
Cowboy hat.
Yeah, probably. And so, I guess what I'm saying is that, boy, those Japanese people sure are racist.
I didn't actually think.
That's not offensive to say at all, is it? Right?
No.
Right? Oh, God. Who's going to yell at me from Tumblr this time?
Or
I didn't
maybe
actually think that kid was that bad. I don't remember his name, but
No, the kid is pretty fine. Like, he just would randomly, he's the ship chore boy who will just randomly go into rap songs. He wasn't that bad. It was just, this is what Japanese do with stereotypes. Sure is. Which, again, makes sense. I mean, this is Phoenix Wright. Everyone's a stereotype of something. Like, everyone. Like, there's no real, they do really neat things with stereotypes, which they do in this one as well. But that's just what they do.
I'm trying to think of a character that's not a blatant stereotype. I guess I got nothing.
There you go. And again, I'm not saying that that's entirely bad. Phoenix Wright, again, this game might be my favorite game of this year, so I'm okay with games that are stereotypes, that you use the stereotypes, as long as they do it in funny or interesting ways. And I do feel that this case does that.
Especially, I thought it was very respectful to all of its characters. I don't think anyone was ever a joke, really.
So, anything else we want to get into before we roll into spoilers? Because I feel we've now pretty much set the premise and some of the characters. That's pretty good for Phoenix Wright stuff. They do a very good job of making use of Cyclops as well as Athena's crazy widget thing, where she messes with everyone's their feelings. And they make use of those in the opportune moments, and that works out well. And they do a pretty good job of introducing those mechanics, just in case this was your first case, but without really harping on it. They go, okay, this is how you do the go.
Because if you got the game after the DLC came out, you could basically play that DLC anytime you wanted to.
Right.
So you could.
It is chronologically the first one, so.
It's true. It is. Technically, within chronologically, yes.
Oh no, it's not.
It is the first one.
The second case happens before he gets his badge back, I think. Maybe. The chronology of this game
I'm
is
not
really
sure.
weird. They jump all over the place.
It is really weird. They did jump all over the place, but. So if I say it takes place, near the start of it, I think that is safe enough to say.
Basically.
So, any final thoughts before we jump into spoilers?
Questions.
Go for it.
One, Basil, since you made a big deal about it the second time, what did you feel about it kind of being a return to uneasy Phoenix? Because, understandably, it's his first time really back in the saddle. So I feel like it's a transition. But I do know you'd like kind of like more on his game, kind of like, hey man, I have experience, Phoenix, in like really the main game. Whereas I feel like he's kind of halfway in between it in this one.
He is. Well, I feel that if you because this is, spoilers, this is a 2-day case. So I feel the initial courtroom sessions, he's really kind of on his ropes there, and he's really, sort of, refeeling his way through. But I think by the time you get to the second half of the case, the second time he's in the courtroom, he's there. We've got full on, I know what I'm doing Phoenix again. Like, I think you're right. You do see that sort of halfway transition from, oh yeah, how do I do this lawyer thing again? No, wait, you know what? I am a badass lawyer. That's right. And I think you actually get that transition in the actual case itself.
I didn't really pick up on that myself, but...
I didn't either until Alan asked the question.
In the course of the main game, not the DLC, it seemed like playable Phoenix and NPC Phoenix were like two separate characters to me. As an NPC, he's basically Mia Fey from the first game. It's all dark and mysterious, and he knows more than what's going on. And then once you play him, seems kind of bumbling and the same old Phoenix you knew from the old games.
I think it's really a case of Phoenix hides himself very well. Like, because it's another thing where the way the Phoenix Wright games work is when you're playing whoever's the main character for your particular case, you get to see all their inner thoughts. And so I'm wondering if it's just really a case of, even back then, Phoenix is having those bumbling thoughts in the back of his brain, so you don't notice it when he's being, when he puts on a really good front. But there were a few times, I just remember this case, now that I'm thinking about it, where, Prosecutor Blackquill will say, haha, what about your sword, or blah, 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 blah. And Phoenix goes, you're right, here's my sword right here. Here's my evidence. Boom! There you go. Phoenix right up in here. Like he would, whereas the first part of the case, especially since, he's trying to wrap around the idea of, he's defending this whale, what's going on, we don't know sure what's happening here, how am I going to even do this? Because the whole idea of the whole thing of, this whale has done it, is really has him going for a bit, where he's just not sure how to drag himself out of this one, especially it being his first time back. Whereas when we get further onto this case, he's very much more... He's had time to do more investigations. He seems like he has more things in his arsenal. He kind of knows where this thing's going. And so he does seem to me like, he still has moments of him, having his freaked out face, but there's less of them.
Plus, once again, I think it comes back to the whole, repeated line of, you should always be smiling, even, for your client, even though you inside may be like, what the am I gonna do?
So that was question one. What was question number two?
I don't want to go too much into it until we're into the spoiler section, but did this case seem to have a familiar beat to a previous case?
I think we'll have to go with spoilers on that one, because I'm not sure what you're referring to. Because it's been a while since I played the older games. So we're going to take a break here, nice little musical interlude, and then we're back with spoilers for this one DLC case. We'll be right back, folks. And we're back. Now, warning, this is going to be spoilers for this one DLC case, potentially more Phoenix Wright stuff in general. But chances are, if you're listening to this part, you've probably not only played the DLC case, you've probably played the whole game, but just in case, we're still focusing primarily on the DLC case.
Yeah, I might have to make one or two little spoilers to the second game, though.
That's fine. I think we talked about this previously, where chances are, if you're playing this Phoenix Wright game, you have probably played the previous ones.
I know the first game I played was the second one, so...
So I'm just warning people, I'm going to bring that up a little bit.
Alright. I'm guessing there was... Again, it's been a while since I played that second game. Was that the case you're referring to? Because I remember there was another case dealing with an animal. I just couldn't remember
what it was. In this case, or at some point in the game.
They do.
They mentioned the last case from the first game, which is when he interviews Polly, the old guy in the shipyard, like the guy who rents the boats, his parrot, and it turns out to be the guard.
Oh, yeah.
But what I was referring to is, in the second case, Turnabout Big Top, when the lion is accused of killing somebody, and they try to convict the trainer.
Maybe.
Yeah. I could see that.
But also, I feel it's the only time in both cases the criminal does the murder accidentally when they meant to kill somebody else, and they feel like genuine remorse. Because most of the time, most of the people like just horrible people. It's also, I just found the odd parallel that they were both the case where an animal was involved, and it was one of the few times that both of the killers felt remorse for what they did because they meant to kill somebody else.
That's true. Although this one is especially weird because what he was trying to kill wasn't in fact not even a person. In this one, it was the whale, which turned out to not even be the whale he was wanting to kill. And as it turns out, that whale didn't do it when he thought the whale did to deserve death. It was screw-ups all the way around. But it all ended on a really happy note, so it kind of works out.
Yeah.
It was an accident, and he gets redeemed, and he comes back at the end. I like that.
Yeah, also the crazy where, I was so happy that it wasn't Vet Guy.
Oh, yeah, no, I had the same reaction.
I was positive it would be him, so...
Well, but my hope was I'm like, well...
It was too obvious.
Chore Boy was very, very shifty, and what got me going, well, I'm not sure which, is because they gave the creepy evil smile to Vet Guy. And that sometimes is, that's your indicator. For example, during the school case.
And sometimes it's a red herring.
It is. And so, I wasn't sure. It could have gone either way. And I just don't want to. I'm hoping, and what made me decide it couldn't be him was because he had that stupid penguin in his afro. And I thought, well, how he's going to deal with keeping the penguin in his afro also in jail. I don't think that's possible. So therefore, and he would have, for some reason, in my brain, I realized that if he was in jail, somehow he would still keep the penguin in his afro. And that wouldn't work very well for anybody. So therefore, he can't have done it.
Unless the penguin was an accomplice. Or the true murderer.
That penguin was way too cute. It wasn't like Rifle. Or Rifle's a little jerk. Even though you're a penguin, Rifle, and therefore I automatically love you. But Rifle was kind of a jerk, whereas Pistol, I think it was Pistol?
Maybe the other way around.
He was just a little enjoyable little penguin who would never leave his home of the afro. But then the transformation from
Sniper.
Wimpy dude. Sniper, that's right, Sniper. But Chore Boy into Chore Man. Into super buff, man, I'll work out.
Scary, actually.
Bro, I do.
And it's sort of, yeah, and it's sort of, I remember then, I believe it was Sasha Buckler, the girl, where she would constantly be blowing up her arm guards, and he does sort of a similar thing, only with his muscles. And I'm like, oh dear, and then boom, he's got dreads, and now he's super swarthy, and his raps take a much harder edge to them. That was a good villain reveal. I gotta say that was enjoyable to watch, and then watching his final freak out as he was going through a tempest. That was also one of the better, villains freaking out over losing.
That was on par with
scenes.
Mr. Means teacher dude going into super buff teacher mode.
Yeah, and then he constantly using the blackboard. It was very similar. They did a lot of really good villain freakouts.
Super over the top.
Game.
if you thought this game was
They
realistic.
really did a they did a really good job. Like this team, whoever's making this new Phoenix Wright game, they get what makes a good Phoenix Wright game or a good Ace Attorney game. That they get it, and this is yet another case of them just really understanding what makes these things work and what makes these things awesome.
Something I do really appreciate about this game in general, not just this case. At first, I was kind of sad because they don't really bring back any of the NPCs from the old games, so you don't have like Lotta Hart or any of those guys that would show up in like every case. So everyone's new,
Right.
so you don't know right off the bat like it's probably not Lotta because she's in 3 games. They're not going to make her a killer all of a sudden. It's aside from like the lawyers, it's mostly a new cast, so it keeps you on edge.
Right. It's true. Although I really do wonder if we'll start seeing more of the older characters in like the next game. As just in general, this new game really feels like it is a new starting
It's
point.
a new starting point. Apollo Justice was supposed to be.
Well, I feel like Larry Butts is eventually going to have to come back as being accused of murder. I think it is just the way
Just
of
the
the
Butts.
universe.
Yeah, well, if something smells, it's probably the butts. And well, I feel that it's a real case of the Shu Takumi, the guy who made Phoenix Wright originally. I really feel that he keeps wanting to not make more Phoenix Wright games. Like, I think he wants to do something else finally. And he eventually did get to it with Ghost Trick, but I really feel that Apollo Justice was him going like, you really need to make another Ace Attorney game. You really need to make another Ace Attorney game, not something else. You make more Ace Attorney. We need another sequel. And Apollo Justice was him sort of rebelling against that whole idea
I
of having to
definitely
make a
believe
sequel.
that. Even the writing quality in Apollo Justice seemed like it was a step down. Like, the heart wasn't really in it.
But I will say that I'm really glad, especially now that this game exists. Like, I feel they did a really good job of making like Apollo Justice like integral to the new Wright lawyer
I
team.
love Apollo now.
I liked him before, but yeah,
Apollo
I love
and
him
Athena
now.
have such a great dynamic. I was actually kind of sad when I had to play
Yeah.
as Phoenix because I like them so much.
I could totally see that, and actually partially agree, except they did point out that this was, Phoenix's return, and they couldn't let Phoenix and Apollo be on the same team yet. As they make a plot point in one of the later cases, we've never teamed up like this before, and he's like, you're right. Now I'm really looking forward to eventually possibly getting, like, an Apollo in the driver's seat with Phoenix
I
as
got
the
a
buddy.
glimpse of that in the third case with Athena for a few seconds.
Yeah. So, any other, like, standout moments for this case from either of you guys?
You get the not guilty verdict at the end of the first day, so this is technically 2 cases.
That's true. That is true. Like, you do, because the Orca gets, saved, and then Sasha's indicted. And so, though I do think there was a particular moment that Alan wanted to talk about.
Oh, 2 things, actually, now that I think about it. One, I wanted to mention, we did get a lot of video in this one, and songs.
Oh, yeah.
We did. We did. In fact, competing songs. Not only did we get competing songs, but it was actually important to the plot that we got competing songs.
And the other thing I could think, basically making this overall a musical episode, was that we also got the ending rap battle.
It's true.
When you say that.
I was somewhat sad that I had to suspend my suspension of disbelief because the rap that they were putting out as the text did not match the actual beat of the underlying music. Because while I was reading it, I was trying to match the words with the beat, and it wasn't working.
Well,
I'll be honest, I kind of sped through that.
Well, I've grown up with music, and also with rap music, as I'm a white guy who lives in a predominantly African American neighborhoods and schools. When I was in high school, I was part of a 7% minority. And so I came out of that with a very healthy appreciation for rap music and R&B in general. And so when they started, I'm like, yes, there's rhyming and rapping. Let me see if, this doesn't really fit the beat.
I just have the feeling it was one of those things that worked in Japanese, but you got to do what you got to do.
Oh, no. I totally believe that. And I'm fine with it. I was just slightly let down. It brings me, so that could be like, a 9.5 is now like a 9.45. Like it's a disappointment, but it's so slight that I can't really knock everything else. I understood their heart was in the right place, and so I was okay with that. But no, it's like I also didn't really like Writer Lady. I like the idea that it was once again you discover that the judge likes to read books. That was nice to know. I
always enjoy those little glimpses into the judge's personality.
Like, one of these days I need to go to like one of the Phoenix Wright wikis and just see if someone has compiled a really good life story of the judge just based off all the little bits
he mentions.
He
obviously owns a dog, because that's come up several times.
It's true. He does. Perhaps it's foreshadowed. Maybe we'll get a future case that deals with the judge's dog.
And we know he has grandkids.
That's true.
I did find it interesting that they really did try to make Norma the Plume look like she was a bad guy for a while.
Yeah, but she was just the first. She was the first person you talked to, so therefore you automatically knew that she wasn't going to be. You
never meet the killer until the second half.
Villain. So, I was like, I knew for a fact that she couldn't be it. But that was and you're right, Mark. Like, you're not supposed to. That's really what threw me off with the whole vet thing, where it's like. Because that's when you really meet the vet, is in the second half. And I'm like, I met him in the second half, and they haven't really shown him before, and he's got the creepy grip. Oh, but he's got a penguin in the afro. I don't want him to be bad. And he's bad, but not bad in killer bad. So, that was fine. Son of a gun. All right, so any last thoughts before we close up this sort of supplemental OSMcast?
No, not really.
Once again, if the DLCs are this substantial, I don't really feel horrible about them being DLC.
No, I felt perfectly fine paying the $6 or $7 they wanted me to for it. I actually really wish they'd give us more. Yeah. What I would love to actually see is, say, if they could give me a new case every like 3 or 4 months, and then give next year, 2014, and then give me another full game in say like 2015, I'd be totally okay. Like, sort of give it to me sort of almost Telltale style, where you just give me a new case just every so often, and then once at the end of that, give me a full game full of super meaty plot integral cases, but sort of string me along until the next one with these sort of one shot, extra goofy cases. That would be sublime. It'd be perfect. We'll never get that. It's Japan.
We can dream. As it is, but we only get a new game like every 3 or 4 years, so it's
like I mentioned it in the main Ace Attorney, is that I really think this is just the fact that we have this brand new engine. Really, I hope encourages them to make more games, just for an excuse to use this engine. because this engine's really good at delivering a really good Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney game. So I feel that they could totally need to make use of it. Especially now that it exists, and now they just have to create stuff for this engine. They should do that.
The fans need to get a hold of the engine so they can create their own terrible cases.
I don't know.
I was on YouTube today,
that.
and I saw a My Little Pony Phoenix Wright case that was like 6 hours long, and it was fully voiced.
Well,
it was...
like My Little Pony
God, it was voiced?
fandom is like surprisingly zealotly
They are
motivated.
very dedicated.
Like, you'd be surprised
That's
how
crazy.
much actual effort they will put into anything pony related.
They're on the caliber of like Toho fans and being dedicated to their little thing.
Although I did find out today, totally to derail this, apparently a lot of the creative, like the biggest creative minds that were in Toho fandom are now going to Cancole fandom, and it's really like studying this kind of otaku, like turf war.
Damn. Can't.
Should I?
Chronicle's really taken off lately. Everyone on my Twitter
Yeah.
feed's reading or playing it.
Can't do. Okay, I'll. What is this?
Cancole is this like online card game, but all the cards are related to girls who are battleships.
I could be wrong, but I believe the anime, I think it was called like Arpeggio of the Blue Steel. I believe that's an adaptation of that game.
No.
No?
There is a Cancole anime coming out in 2014, but Arpeggio, I think, is just capitalizing. The Arpeggio is different.
Okay. I thought some of the girls looked the same.
How much girls like and battleships is this?
It's the hot new thing, dude.
No. How much are girls like battleships
not at all.
in this?
They're just girls,
Okay.
and maybe they're wearing like a sailor's uniform or something.
And they usually have like little like currents and stuff on them and such.
So not like a battleship and a girl
No.
sticking out of it. Okay. Better. My brain was coming out with something worse. Okay.
It's like the Hetalia thing.
All right.
They're countries, but they're just boys.
Okay. I wasn't worried if we were talking like Strike Witch or something where they like go or other things where the girls are like part
That would be a
airplane or
cooler show.
something, you know. And I just had this idea of seeing like a battleship like Yamato. Only out of the top of the Yamato is like a half naked girl.
Space battleship Yamato.
And I'm like, no, don't do it, don't do it. But it didn't do it yet. I'm not saying
I
it
was
won't
about
happen.
to say there is a guy who does a lot of like sexy doujin comics in Osamu Tezuka style, and he did draw a Kanokal in Leiji Matsumoto style of the Yamato.
Huh.
So, anyways, this has been the OSMcast, everybody. I've been your host, Basil, along with Alan from Reverse Thieves and Mark for the Oriental Cartoon Show.
This podcast into hell itself.
I'm sorry.
And while we're careening face first into the abyss, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Good night.
See ya.